In 2014, a British scientist spent years dealing with headaches, strange burning sensations, and flashes in his eyes. A brain scan showed something that shouldn't be inside a human skull. A dark spot that moved. From one scan to the next, it kept turning up in a different part of his brain. Doctors pulled a living creature out of his head. It had spent over 4 years inside his brain, slowly traveling from one hemisphere to the other. This isn't a horror movie. It's a real medical case published in a scientific journal. And this parasite isn't even the scariest thing on our list. Today, the top 10 most dangerous marine parasites for humans. I'll tell you exactly what happened to that scientist at the very end, at number 1. Let's start small. Hey, today we're counting down 10 creatures that get into humans through food or straight from the water, and then cause absolute chaos inside the body. Some of these will just give you an unpleasant itch. Others can land you in the ER, and one of them literally travels through the human brain. Halfway through this video, a real story about a teenager, a parasite from a mollusk, and a coma. Don't skip it. Let's start with number 10. Copepods are tiny crustaceans, roughly the size of a grain of sand, and the ocean holds trillions of them. On their own, they're not parasites, but their gut is a favorite hiding spot for cholera bacteria, Vibrio cholerae. A single copepod can carry thousands of cholera bacteria on its body. Drink unfiltered, contaminated water containing enough of these tiny crustaceans, and you've got the makings of an epidemic. Scientists believe copepods largely explain why cholera outbreaks surge in waves, tracking exactly where the water warms up and copepod populations explode. A microscopic creature with a punch that can rival anything else on this list. If you've ever stepped out of a warm sea, covered in an unexplained burning rash, you've probably met the larva people nickname sea lice. They're actually the larvae of parasitic flatworms, called cercaria, that are normally hunting for birds or marine animals. They don't need a human at all, but they still try to burrow into human skin, get stuck, and die, leaving behind a brutal, itchy trail. It's called cercarial dermatitis, or swimmer's itch. Not deadly, but dozens of beach resorts worldwide shut down every year over mass outbreaks, and thousands of people end up scratching for weeks. This creature is scarier for its life story than for any real danger it poses to people. Cymathoa exigua is a parasitic isopod that crawls into a fish's mouth through the gills, attaches to the tongue, drinks its blood until the tongue withers away, and then takes its place. The fish literally goes on living with a parasite standing in for its own tongue. It's not deadly for humans, but divers regularly report that these little crustaceans latch onto their toes when given the chance and bite down surprisingly hard with the same sharp claws they normally use to grip a fish's tongue. Great party fact, but the truly nightmarish part of this list is just getting started. Clonorchus sinensis is a flatworm humans pick up by eating raw or undercooked fish, particularly common in Southeast Asian dishes. Once inside, the parasite makes its way straight to the liver's bile ducts and stays there for years, sometimes decades, laying thousands of eggs every single day. A single infected person can go years without noticing a problem, until chronic inflammation of the bile ducts leads to cirrhosis, or worse, bile duct cancer. The World Health Organization officially classified this parasite as a Group 1 carcinogen, an extremely rare status for a living organism. Paragonimus westermanni hides in raw or pickled crab and freshwater crayfish meat, a popular dish across much of Asia. Once swallowed, the larvae bore through the intestinal wall, migrate through the diaphragm, and settle directly into the lungs. Symptoms include coughing, chest pain, and coughing up blood, close enough to tuberculosis that doctors around the world have misdiagnosed it as TB for years, treating patients for entirely the wrong disease. By the time the truth comes out, the parasite has usually already done serious damage to the lungs.
Diphyllobothrium latum is the longest parasite known to live inside a human being. Officially documented specimens have grown up to 10 meters long. That's the length of a city bus. People get infected by eating raw or lightly salted fish, especially salmon, trout, or pike. The most unsettling part? This worm directly competes with its host for vitamin B12, literally siphoning it out of the intestine. In heavy infections, people can develop genuine anemia simply because a giant roommate inside them is stealing a vital vitamin before the body ever gets the chance to absorb it.
As sushi and sashimi have exploded in popularity worldwide, anisakiasis has become one of the fastest-growing parasitic diseases on Earth. Anisakis simplex larvae live in the muscle tissue of fish and squid. If the fish is served without being properly frozen or cooked, a live larva ends up directly in a person's stomach. Once there, it tries to burrow into the stomach wall, exactly as it would inside a fish. That causes sudden, sharp pain and vomiting, and sometimes requires emergency surgery to physically remove the parasite with an endoscope. Some people also develop a severe allergic reaction simply to the worm's presence, up to and including anaphylactic shock. 2010, Australia. A 19-year-old named Sam swallows an ordinary garden slug on a dare from his friends. Just for a laugh, just to get a reaction from the group. A few days later, his legs started going numb. Within weeks, he was paralyzed from the waist down. Doctors diagnosed an extremely rare brain infection caused by a parasite almost nobody had heard of. He spent the next 8 years in a coma, bedridden, and ultimately died from complications in 2018. All from one slug, one dare, and one parasite, which lands at number 3 on our list. Angiostrongylus cantonensis, or rat lungworm, normally cycles between rats and land or freshwater snails, slugs, and certain marine mollusks and shrimp. Humans are an accidental dead-end host. Infection happens by eating raw or poorly washed mollusks and shrimp, or, as in Sam's case, accidentally swallowing an infected slug. Most cases recover with treatment, but in massive infections, like Sam's, the damage can be permanent or fatal. Gnathostoma spinigerum is common across Southeast Asia and gets into humans through raw fish, eel, or undercooked chicken. What sets this parasite apart is that it doesn't stay put. The larva migrates under a person's skin, leaving behind painful, inflamed, moving swellings on the arm today, the stomach next week, the back after that. Sometimes the parasite migrates deeper than skin, into the eye, causing blindness, or into the central nervous system, which is deadly. Doctors call this condition migratory swelling, and there's no way to predict in advance where it's headed next. Now, back to that British scientist from the very start of this video. The parasite that lived in his brain for over 4 years turned out to be the larva of a tapeworm from the genus Spirometra. The condition is called sparganosis. Infection usually comes from eating raw fish, frogs, snakes, or even just drinking water containing infected copepods, the same tiny crustaceans we mentioned all the way back at number 10. The larva doesn't settle in one spot like a typical intestinal tapeworm. It migrates through the body, through muscle, under the skin, and in the rarest, most terrifying cases, into the brain. The scientist in question got lucky. He was a parasitologist himself, and once he noticed the symptoms, he suspected something was wrong long before it became life-threatening. Doctors operated, removed the parasite alive, and, fittingly, sent its DNA off for sequencing, turning his own illness into a scientific publication. Not everyone is that lucky, and that's exactly why sparganosis takes the top spot. A quiet, invisible parasite that can spend years hiding, literally traveling through the human brain, with no idea it's even there until it's too late. From tiny crustaceans carrying cholera to a worm that spends years wandering through the brain, the ocean hides far more danger than the sharks and jellyfish that usually get the videos. Here's the good news. Nearly every story on this list shares one thing in common. Properly cooking or freezing fish and seafood cuts the risk down to almost nothing. So keep enjoying your sushi. Just pick your restaurants carefully. If this video changed how you look at raw fish, hit like. It's the best support you can give this channel. Drop a comment. Which parasite on this list scared you the most? The sushi worm, rat lungworm, or sparganosis? Want to support our channel financially? Check the description. And if you want a dedicated video on the most dangerous land-based parasites, let me know. We'll dig into it. See you in the next video.